In the heart of Nairobi, where glass towers reached for the skies and business tycoons dictated the economy, one man stood above them all, Eun-ho Park, a Korean-born billionaire who had expanded his empire into Africa. Known for his cold, calculated moves, Eun-ho was admired by men and feared by women. Why? Because Eun-ho had a strange allergy to women. A single touch made his skin flare up, his breath hitch, and his composure shatter. For years, this curse kept him untouched, untamed, and unmarried. That was until he hired Zawadi, a fearless Kenyan woman with sharp eyes, a bold voice, and a heart that bowed to no man. She didn't fear his cold gaze nor his walls of wealth. To her, he was simply a man who needed to be shaken out of his arrogance. One evening, during a heated argument in his office, Eun-ho leaned too close, barking orders. Zawadi tilted her chin, refusing to back down. You think you're moan in the heart of Nairobi, where glass towers reached for the skies and business tycoons dictated the economy. One man stood above them all, Eun-ho Park, a Korean-born billionaire who had expanded his empire into Africa. Known for his cold, calculated moves, Eun-ho was admired by men and feared by women. Why? Because Eun-ho had a strange allergy to women. A single touch made his skin flare up, his breath hitch, and his composure shatter. For years, this curse kept him untouched, untamed. Andy makes you a god, she said. And you think your defiance makes you special? He shot back. Then, with the recklessness of a lioness, Zawadi closed the space and kissed him. Eun-ho froze. For the first time in his life, his allergy didn't flare. His skin didn't burn. His lungs didn't seize. Instead, his heart thundered in his chest, as if he'd been waiting all his life for that single daring kiss. From that moment, he couldn't stay away. He followed her with eyes full of confusion, anger, and a hunger he never knew existed. Zawadi, however, refused to play the submissive role. She teased him, challenged him, and when his board members laughed at the idea of him ever marrying, she smirked and whispered, "Maybe I'll drag you to the altar myself." And drag him she did. When Eun-ho hesitated at the thought of marriage, afraid of scandal, of losing his control, of his cursed allergy returning, Zawadi took matters into her own hands. She marched him into the grand cathedral, handcuffed his wrist to hers with golden chains, and stood before the priest. "Say the vows," she demanded, fire blazing in her eyes. Eun-ho stared at her, this fearless woman who had broken through his walls, his fear, his sickness. He laughed for the first time in years, shaking his head in disbelief. "You really are impossible. And you really are mine," she shot back. That day, under the vaulted ceilings of Nairobi's most famous church, the untouchable billionaire married the fearless Kenyan woman who dared to kiss him first. And for the first time, his allergy was gone. Forever. Because sometimes, love isn't gentle. Sometimes it's bold enough to rewrite destiny. The world buzzed with disbelief. The cold, untouchable billionaire who swore off women forever was now married, dragged to the altar by a Kenyan woman who dared kiss him first. But behind the gossip columns and flashing cameras, the real story was unfolding in their new home. Zawadi stood at the balcony of the mansion, her hair catching the Nairobi night breeze. She felt him before she heard him. Eun-ho, always so sharp, always so calculated, yet now hesitant as he approached her. "You really changed everything," he murmured, his voice low. She turned, a teasing smile curving her lips. "Do you regret it already, Mr. Billionaire?" Instead of answering, he reached out, slowly, carefully, as if afraid she would vanish if he touched her. His hand brushed hers. No allergy, no burning, just warmth. His dark eyes widened, like a boy seeing the sunrise for the first time. "You don't hurt me," he whispered. "Do you know how terrifying that is for me?" Zawadi stepped closer, resting her hand flat against his chest, feeling his heart race beneath the expensive silk shirt. "It's not terrifying," she said softly. "It's freedom. You were never sick, Eun-ho. You were lonely. You built walls so high no woman could climb them. But me." Her eyes gleamed, I break walls. Her words shattered the last of his defenses. He cupped her face with both hands and kissed her. Not with the shock of their first reckless kiss, but with aching hunger, with the desperation of a man who had been starving all his life. His lips trembled against hers, and Zawadi pulled him closer, her boldness fueling his fire. The billionaire who once flinched from a woman's touch now couldn't stop touching her. Her hands, her waist, the curve of her cheek. Each caress was like a discovery, each kiss a promise. When he finally pulled back, breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. Zawadi, you're not just my wife. You're my cure. Her laughter was soft, warm. And you're not just my boss anymore. You're mine. Completely. That night, in the glow of moonlight spilling through the windows, the fearless Kenyan woman taught her billionaire husband what love truly meant. Slowly, tenderly, passionately. Unho learned that surrender wasn't weakness, but strength in the arms of the right woman. And Zawadi knew, with every kiss and every whispered vow, that she hadn't just dragged him to the altar. She had dragged him into love. Days after their whirlwind wedding, Nairobi was still buzzing. Headlines screamed about Unho Park, the billionaire who swore he could never love, now bound to a Kenyan woman who had stolen his heart. But for Unho, the world outside didn't matter. Every morning, he found himself waking before dawn, just to watch Zawadi sleep, her face soft, her curls spilling across the pillow. He had lived in skyscrapers of steel and glass, owned cars that cost more than villages, but nothing had ever struck him as breathtaking as his wife's peaceful face. One morning, he whispered, almost to himself, "How did you do it? How did you break me?" Zawadi stirred, eyes opening, her smile lazy but teasing. "I didn't break you," she murmured, tracing his jawline with her finger. "I unlocked you." That touch, that simple touch, still left him reeling. He caught her hand, kissed her palm, then her wrist, moving up with reverence as if she were something sacred. He had once been allergic to women, terrified of touch. But with her, he couldn't stop. He didn't want to stop. Later that evening, he surprised her with something unusual. The rooftop of their mansion was transformed into a garden of glowing lanterns. A table for two stood at the center, with soft music floating in the air. "You're full of surprises," Zawadi said, laughing as she looked around. "I wanted to give you something money can't buy," Unho replied, "because you gave me what billions never could." Over dinner, they talked, not of business, not of scandals, but of dreams. Zawadi told him about her childhood, running barefoot in the Kenyan fields, her laughter echoing across the hills. Unho confessed that he had never known what home truly felt like, until her. When the music swelled, he stood and extended his hand. "Dance with me." She raised a brow. "I thought you didn't dance." "I didn't," he admitted, eyes gleaming. "But for you, I'll learn." So, under the stars, he held her close, their bodies swaying gently. His lips brushed her temple as he whispered, "I used to think love was weakness, but with you, I've never felt stronger." Zawadi tilted her head, kissed him softly, and whispered back, "Then let's stay strong forever." The night ended not with grand gestures, but with quiet intimacy. Two souls entwined, finding home in each other's arms. The morning sun spilled through the silk curtains of their suite on the Kenyan coast. The ocean whispered against the shore, waves carrying the music of eternity. Zawadi stepped out onto the balcony, barefoot, wrapped in a white robe, her skin kissed by the golden light. Unho appeared behind her, his arms sliding gently around her waist. For a man who once flinched at the touch of women, he now clung to her as though she was the air he needed to breathe. "You shine brighter than the sunrise," he murmured against her ear, his voice low, husky with affection. She turned, laughing softly. "You're getting better at this romance thing. I have the best teacher," he said, before tilting her chin and capturing her lips in a kiss, slow, unhurried, full of reverence. Later, they walked along the beach hand in hand. Unho, usually stiff in suits, was barefoot in rolled-up trousers, the billionaire undone. Zawadi splashed water at him, her laughter carrying on the breeze. At first, he pretended annoyance, but soon he was chasing her through the surf, both of them breathless, both of them free. When he finally caught her, he pulled her close, dripping and laughing. But his laughter faded into quiet intensity as he stared into her eyes. "Zawadi," he whispered, pressing his forehead to hers. "I thought I built my empire to protect myself from pain, but now all I want is you. If I lose everything else, as long as you're with me, I'll still be the richest man alive." Her smile softened. She cupped his cheek, brushing her thumb across his damp skin. "You'll never lose me, Unho. I chose you when I kissed you. I'll keep choosing you, every day." That night, in their villa overlooking the sea, the world melted away. Candlelight flickered across the room, painting shadows that swayed with their movements. Unho kissed her like a man discovering the meaning of life, his hands trembling slightly with the depth of his emotions. For once, Zawadi didn't tease. She simply loved him, completely, fiercely, without fear. And when the waves outside rose and fell, their hearts rose and fell with them, beating in rhythm, whispering promises without words. The ocean roared outside their villa, waves crashing like drums of destiny. Inside, silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of love unsaid. Zawadi stood by the window, her white dress flowing like moonlight, her eyes fixed on the stars. Unho watched her, his chest tightening with emotions he had never allowed himself to feel. "Why are you staring at me like that?" she asked softly, not turning. "Because," his voice trembled, "I still can't believe you're mine, that you chose me, when the world thinks I'm unworthy of touch." She turned then, her steps slow, deliberate, her gaze never leaving his. "Unho," she whispered, "you're not unworthy. You were just waiting for the right hands to hold you, the right lips to kiss you, the right heart to love you." Her words shattered him. For years he had been a fortress, cold, untouchable, invincible. But with her he was human, and it was beautiful. He crossed the room in 2 strides, cupping her face in his hands. His kiss this time was different. Not rushed, not desperate. It was deep, reverent, as though he was memorizing her soul through her lips. Her fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him closer. The billionaire who once recoiled from women now burned with hunger for his wife's touch. He trailed kisses down her neck, whispering against her skin, "Teach me how to love, Zawadi. Every way, every moment. Teach me." She smiled, guiding his trembling hands to her waist. "Love isn't taught, Unho. It's felt. And tonight you'll feel everything." The night stretched endlessly. Candlelight flickered across the walls, shadows dancing with them as they moved together, hearts pounding in perfect rhythm. For the first time in his life, Unho wasn't afraid of touch. He craved it, her. Every kiss, every caress was a promise, every sigh a confession. When dawn finally painted the sky with pink and gold, they lay tangled in the sheets, her head resting on his chest, his arm protectively around her. "Zawadi," he whispered into her hair, "I used to think empires were built on power, but now I know. Mine is built on you." Her smile was sleepy, content. "Then promise me, Unho, promise me this empire of ours will never fall." He kissed her forehead, tightening his hold. "As long as my heart beats, it never will." When their honeymoon ended, Nairobi was waiting. Flashing cameras, endless rumors, board members whispering behind polished tables. Unho returned to his empire, but this time he wasn't the same man who had once ruled with only ice in his veins. Now he walked into the boardroom with Zawadi at his side. The men who had mocked him for being untouchable stared in disbelief. She wasn't just beautiful. She was confident, radiant, and fearless, his equal in every way. During the meeting, Unho reached for her hand under the table. She gave it a squeeze, steadying him. No allergy, no pain, only peace. The billionaire, who once flinched from the smallest touch, now found strength in holding his wife's hand in the middle of a corporate battlefield. That evening, when the world's noise grew too loud, he pulled her into his private office, locking the doors behind them. "Zawadi," he whispered, pressing his forehead to hers. The higher I rise, the more I realize. None of this means anything without you. She tilted her head, smiling. Good, because you're not getting rid of me, billionaire or not. His laughter rumbled low in his chest, but it was cut short when she kissed him, slow, sweet, like an anchor pulling him out of the storm. He deepened it, his hands sliding to her waist, lifting her as though she were the most precious thing he owned. I used to be afraid of women, he breathed between kisses. But now, I'm only afraid of losing you. Zawadi brushed her lips against his ear, whispering, You never will. You're my husband, my lover, my forever. The office, once sterile and cold, now burned with warmth. Papers fluttered to the ground as he pulled her close against his desk, their passion igniting in stolen kisses, soft gasps, and whispered vows. Later, as they lay tangled in the leather sofa, her head resting on his chest, Eun-ho traced circles on her arm. Promise me something, he murmured. What? She asked sleepily. That when the world tries to tear us apart, and it will, you'll keep kissing me like you did that first day. Bold, fearless, yours. Her lips curved in a smile against his skin. I'll do more than kiss you, Eun-ho. I'll fight for you, always. And as the night deepened, they made love not just with their bodies, but with their promises. Two souls binding tighter, daring the world to try and break them. Months passed, and the whispers of scandal faded into awe. Eun-ho Park, the billionaire once cursed by his strange allergy to women, was now the man who couldn't let go of his wife's hand. Business partners who doubted him soon realized his empire grew stronger, not in spite of his marriage, but because of it. Zawadi brought life into his boardrooms, bold ideas into his strategies, and laughter into his cold, marble halls. She wasn't just his wife. She was his partner, his anchor, his equal. There were storms, yes. Rivals tried to use their love as a weakness. Tabloids painted her as a gold digger, and cultural differences occasionally clashed. But each trial only proved one truth. Together, they were unbreakable. One evening, beneath the Nairobi skyline, Eun-ho surprised her with a rooftop garden filled with roses, lanterns, and music. As she walked into the glow, he went down on one knee. Not with a ring this time, but with his heart wide open. Zawadi, he said softly, his voice trembling with emotion. The day you kissed me, you didn't just cure me, you saved me. You gave me love, laughter, and life. So tonight, I kneel not as a billionaire, but as a man who belongs completely to you. Forever. Her eyes glistened as she pulled him to his feet, cupping his face. And you, Eun-ho, are my miracle, my impossible love that became real. I dragged you to the altar once, she teased through tears. But this time you're the one pulling me. He kissed her then, the kind of kiss that silenced the stars and made time bow to their love. From that day on, their empire was not built on steel, glass, or gold, but on devotion. Eun-ho and Zawadi became a legend, a story whispered not of wealth, but of fearless love. Because sometimes, all it takes is one daring kiss to change destiny. And theirs was a love that no allergy, no scandal, no power on earth could ever undo. Years later, the world still spoke of them. Zawadi, the fearless Kenyan woman who dared to kiss her billionaire boss, and Eun-ho Park, the man once cursed by touch but saved by love. But in their home, away from headlines and boardrooms, they were just husband and wife. One evening, as twilight wrapped Nairobi in shades of gold and purple, Eun-ho sat on the veranda watching Zawadi chase their little daughter across the garden. The child's laughter rang like music, her curls bouncing as she ran into her father's arms. Eun-ho lifted her high into the air, his eyes soft, his heart overflowing. Appa loves you, he whispered, kissing her forehead. Then his gaze shifted to Zawadi, standing at the edge of the garden, her smile radiant. He carried the little girl to her mother and pressed a kiss to Zawadi's lips, gentle, lingering, the kind of kiss that still made his knees weak. I thought I had everything when I built my empire, he said softly, but I had nothing until you kissed me that day. Zawadi cupped his cheek, her thumb brushing his skin. And I'll keep kissing you until we're old and gray. Because you're mine, Un-ho. Always. The little girl giggled and squirmed between them, and Un-ho laughed, resting his forehead against Zawadi's. Our empire, he whispered, isn't built on power anymore. It's built on love. On you. On us. As the stars emerged one by one in the vast African sky, they stood together, husband, wife, and child, hearts bound forever. And with every kiss that followed, Un-ho knew the truth. The fearless woman who once dragged him to the altar had also dragged him into eternity. Life with Zawadi was never ordinary. Un-ho, once the man of ice, now woke up every day to warmth. Not just the sun, but her smile beside him. Some mornings, he rose early to cook breakfast himself, though he was clumsy with Kenyan dishes. Zawadi would stand behind him, laughing softly as she wrapped her arms around his waist. You're a billionaire, Un-ho, she teased. But you still can't fry an egg properly. He turned in her arms, kissing her forehead. I don't need to know how to cook perfectly. I just need to know how to love you perfectly. Nights were even more tender. After the house grew quiet and their little one was asleep, Un-ho would take Zawadi out to the balcony. Together, they'd sit beneath the stars, her head resting on his shoulder, his hand drawing lazy circles against her palm. Do you remember the day you kissed me first? He asked one night, his voice husky with memory. How could I forget? Zawadi smiled, her eyes glowing. The untouchable billionaire, trembling like a boy because a Kenyan woman dared to put her lips on his. He chuckled, pulling her closer. That kiss saved me, Zawadi. Every kiss since then keeps saving me. And he kissed her again. Slow, deep, the kind of kiss that carried years of devotion, of promises made and kept. Their love was not always dramatic now. It was in the little things, in the way he reached for her hand during meetings, in the way she whispered encouragement before he faced the press, in the way their laughter filled the house after long days. But when their eyes met across a crowded room, when his lips brushed hers in the quiet of the night, when he whispered my cure, my forever against her skin, the fire between them burned as brightly as it did on the day she first dared to kiss him. Because theirs wasn't just a marriage. It was a romance that kept growing. Every day, every touch, every kiss. Years passed, and their love only deepened. Un-ho, once the billionaire who flinched at a woman's touch, now couldn't fall asleep without Zawadi's hand in his. She had become his anchor, his cure, his home. Their daughter grew, laughter filling every corner of their house. Yet no matter how busy life became, with boardrooms, school runs, or the chaos of family, Un-ho and Zawadi always made time for one another. A stolen kiss in the kitchen, a soft dance on the balcony, whispered, I love you, in the quiet of the night. One evening, on their wedding anniversary, Un-ho led Zawadi back to the cathedral where she had once dragged him to the altar. The pews were empty, the candles dim. He stood before her, holding her hands, his eyes glistening. Zawadi, he said softly, you didn't just kiss me that day. You rewrote my life. You turned my curse into a blessing, my fear into strength, my loneliness into love. If I live 100 years more, it will never be enough to thank you. Tears shone in her eyes as she whispered back, then don't thank me, Un-ho. Just keep loving me. That's all I'll ever need. He kissed her then. The same fearless, daring kiss that had started everything. And in that sacred place, under flickering candlelight, they sealed what the world already knew. The empire he built would one day fade. But the love they built, bold, fearless, unshakable, would last forever. Episode 1 ends here. The next episode comes up soon. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment. Also like, share and subscribe to my channel and click on the notification icon so that you will get notified whenever a new story is uploaded.